So today we're going to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We're now on episode 40 of the series, and in the last episode we saw World War II will continue on as multiple fronts open around the world and more countries choose a side. Specifically, at the last time of the last episode, we saw the fascist bloc, except Arabia and Azerbaijan, join the side of the triangles. And the Six Stars are starting to lose hope, but they still have some hope left. Now, let's continue on with this war. Now, over here, we don't see much changes. Wales slowly but surely is, nibble by nibble, is kicking Alaska out of Nebraska. But Wales kind of has more important stuff to deal with right now. Like this, Wales now has to deal with this, spreading their army even more thin. And immediately, the first thing that Brazil is going to do is capture this major city of the Welsh, and pushing on over into the Welsh colony, trying to start up some fascist rebellion over here, but they're not successful. But they do manage to form a spearhead over here, capturing this major city. And these two countries down below, they've seen it once, and they'll save them again. And the Rio country and this brown country over here join the war on the side of the Six Stars to help Wales against Brazil. And Brazil is like, ugh, to just go off the war. I don't want to deal with you two again. And they're like, no. And immediately the troops arriving here start to make a difference, as Prussia was kind of hoping that Brazil could sort all of this out on their own. So, see, as you can see, Prussia doesn't have hindsight 2020. God, that's such an old thing. Now, over here with the new troops coming in from Lower Siberia, these two main groups over here are gonna be able to break through the defensive line that Crimea has over here. And Crimea's like, oh crud, this is not good. But as the Prussians now meet with the Black Sea and capture this port over here, and things are looking really bad for Crimea. Crimea is now destined to lose this front. Crimea needs some sort of miracle to happen in order for them to win this front over here. So, yeah, Crimea's kind of cooked. Now, back down here, some funky stuff is happening over here. Multiple riots are happening throughout the Yellow Team, and it's not looking so good for this country, as lots of their citizens don't want this warrior to rage on even more, and they see their government as incompetent, as they can't deal with Slovenia invading them. And you know that's not good when even the elites in your country, not making a reference to World War V, no. The elites in this country, the higher ups, are even starting to think, yeah, this government is maybe just not that good. And when all of this is happening, you know that you're cooked. And what I'm getting at is that the Yellow Team falls into revolution as a rebellion arises that thinks that the Six Stars are the better choice and better for this country, and using the current situation as proof that the triangles are a no-go, and that the Yellow Team should have aligned with the Six Stars. And this movement gets a lot of support from the western areas of the country. The areas over in the north are more pro-Prussian, but Slovenia is gonna deal with that. And now that knocks out a member of the Triangle Alliance, and I don't think that Prussia is a big fan of that, but there's nothing to do for now. And now with the spare troops, Slovenia can and push back the Hungarians over here. Yeah, and even in some areas pushing them back all the way to the border, but they can't go any further. Now over here in Africa, after a long while of fighting, the Wales managed to retake this major city and have now fully kicked out the Portuguese out of their West African colony, and are now going to follow them into their own colony, capturing a few major cities along the way. And some of the higher-ups of Portugal are starting to think maybe we should have focused on ourselves more and then doing the triangles, but it'll be fine. But hey guys, I have an idea. Let's bring this up to Prussia. And the Portuguese bring this brand spanking idea, and Prussia's like, that actually works out for me quite well. Yeah, let's do that. And what's that idea, you may be asking? Well, distractions over here in the front with the Neo-French Union. The blue team and the Belgians join in on the side of the triangles to form a distraction over here in Europe. And let's just say that it's gonna work out well for them. As with this new front, the French didn't think that they would have to deal with. If this pushes them back over here, and Wales is using everything they have to keep the Neo-French alive. It's kind of crazy how much the Welsh are supplying the Neo-French. It's in the history books of Wixo, it's gonna be like one of the greatest supplies, whatever it is, greatest supplier ever. But yeah, things aren't looking so good for the Neo-French Union. As this idea worked out in the end, but in the future it might not go so well for Portugal. That's what I'll say. This idea, because I'll say that the leaders of Portugal kind of want more power over the king. Now back over here with the Kenyan front, the Welsh managed to fully kick out the Kenyans out of their territory, as Prussia is now forced to move their suppliers, a bunch of their supplies, elsewhere, which kind of leaves Kenya in the dust here. They're like, hey, we could use some help here. And Prussia's like, yeah, we would help you, but we're kind of busy with all the other fronts, sorry. And Kenya's like, you little piece of sh-. But that's not what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about how Wales is easily rolling over Kenya. Since Prussia isn't supplying them as heavy enough as they used to, Kenya is kind of cooked here. And after a while, Kenya doesn't see a point in fighting anymore, and they're gonna at last surrender over to the Six Stars, hoping for mercy. And that knocks out another player of the triangles out of the war. Now let's move on elsewhere. Now after a while, Korea manages to fully kick out the Mongolians out of their country. Good for them. Then now more are flooding into Mongolia. But not all is well for Korea, as even more other citizens are starting to get sick of the war and are starting to protest on the streets. And Korea is starting to get overwhelmed by these protests to stop the war. And we'll see how that comes into play later on in this video. Back in South America, with support from the surrounding countries, not just these guys, lots of countries are supplying whales. Whales can push back and chase these Brazilian troops all the way to the major cities. And now, the Welsh are not going to focus on this major city. They're going to focus on the capital of Brazil and swiftly capture it. And Brazil is in panic mode. And yeah, Wales just took all of Brazil's coastline with lots of support from the surrounding countries. And Prussia's like, but over here in the Americas, as Norway sees that the fronts over here are going too slow, and they could use some extra hands. And what do I mean by that? You might be wondering, dear viewer. What I'm getting at is Colombia and Mexico join the Six-Star Alliance. It's likely paid by Norway and by goodwill to do so. And just to speed up these fronts overall. And Alaska and Brazil are like, oh sh. Now over here, with the extra manpower from Mexico, they managed to fully kick out the Alaskans from the front over here, and along with Texas are now going to push into Wyoming, and Texas is gonna go on and capture this major city. And they move into Salt Lake, and they form a spearhead over here to then cut off the Alaskan forces over here, and that looks like that. And Wales advances, capturing the capital city of Wyoming, and this is no bueno for Alaska. After a long while of fighting, Alaska is like, all right. We'll surrender and stop fighting right now if we get to keep what we have right now. Sound good? Fine, but only because we need to move this manpower elsewhere. And thus, the North American theater comes to a close. Now let's move on back to the South American one. Basically, Colombia's gonna swoop in with lots of help. Ignore that they're moving through the Darien Gap. After they move on through here, fully capturing the Panamanian colony. And after some swift naval battles, they managed to fully kick out the Portuguese Navy out of Panama. And with this cleanup, there's only one country left here, Brazil. And Brazil knows they're cooked. So before anything can happen, they surrender as long as they are allowed to live. And Wales doesn't have a problem with that. On one condition, that they stop being fascist, and they're begrudgingly going to oblige, ending in the American theater, now finally letting Wales push more of their forces elsewhere. Ignore the Galapagos, by the way. Now, with the extra manpower that Wales now has, they're gonna use a lot of it to push back and save the Neo-French Union from capitulating over to the invading forces. And Wales is basically carrying the Neo-French Union. If it weren't for Wales, the Neo-French Union would have fallen a long time ago. No. So they managed to fully kick out the blue team and the Belgians, and are now going to push their invading forces over into the blue team. As the troops swiftly come in and take out the country within weeks. The blue team was not strong at all. They were just hoping that they could sneak in some lands, but not this time. And the same is going to be happening with Belgium, as they're swiftly taken, and with lots of support from Wales. So yeah, that's about it for that. Let's move on to the Oceanic Theater. Back over here, the Portuguese's incompetence continues to show over here, as Wales is just waltzing on over here with no problem, capturing a lot of the major cities of the red team. They even form a spearhead over here, cutting off this area from the rest of the Australian colony, which basically just leads to this, and the rest of the Oceanic Red Team colony is kind of thinking, yo, you're gonna still supply us, right? No, what? You're just gonna abandon us? You're already kind of left to die. There's kind of nothing we can do, says the Portuguese government. They're like, the colonists are like, screw you. Hey Wales, can we join up with you in your side? You're a lot cooler. And Wales like, sure, we'll take you in. Yay! And that closes the Oceanic Theater. Now over here, the Welsh slowly but surely creep on back into the Portuguese colony, and they snake their way along the coast up here, and they navally invade this area through the coast, and that's the wrong color. They navally invade this area and manage to fully take the waters over here from the Portuguese. And Prussia's like, what are you doing? If you keep going like this, we'll lose Cape Verde. We can't afford that. And Portugal is like, I don't give a flip. I'll do what I want. And Russia's starting to get extremely frustrated. And the Portuguese are a constitutional monarchy, so the power isn't completely centered by the king. But suddenly, the king is assassinated in the red team. Now, luckily, he did have a successor or someone to give it to, his son. But there's kind of a power struggle here, as the main leaders in the constitutional monarchy of the red team think that they should have all the power, and that they should control the red team. And the son is like, whoa, but shouldn't I have it? I'm his biological son. And they're like, get out. And yeah, things aren't looking so good for Portugal here. Not at all. But now, over here in Asia, Norway has some friends that they want the Triangle Alliance to meet. Those friends are the Communist Union, Greater Siberia, and Japan. And Korea's like, whoa, you guys don't have to join. Come on. And Japan is like, we just don't like you. Siberia like, we have personal beef with you. And the Communist Union is like, oh yeah, beef with the fascists. We have every right to do this. And Korea's like, well, you make a good point, but Come on, we don't have to. And the troops start pouring in. Korea didn't think this one through. For some reason, they decided to put away a lot of their forces up here, like defensive purposes, to go fight over in the Mongolian front, the Chinese front, thinking that these guys won't join the war. Yeah, Korea didn't think this one through. And now, now the Siberians are making great gains against the Koreans, who were caught extremely off guard by this. And Japan, meanwhile, the Japanese Navy crossed into the territorial waters of Korea, fighting intense battles, but winning in the end due to the superior Japanese Navy. Yes, Japan has a better navy than Korea, because Japan actually focused on their navy, while Korea was more on land, military excursions on land. So yeah, Korea shot themselves in the foot again. And the Japanese are making steady landings in South Korea and Manchuria, capturing a lot of the former Siberian land, and pushing through the entirety of Sakhalin, and forming another naval landing up here. And Korea is not a big fan of that, obviously. And now the Siberian Navy, although not superior, with help from the Japanese Navy, are beating the Korean Navy. And the Japanese fully kick out of the Koreans from the area between Manchuria and Sakhalin, and are now chasing them into the sea. And after a while, the naval forces over here surrender over to the superior Japanese Navy, and Korea is kind of cooked. But it could get worse. It could be worse for Korea. So things can only go up from here. I spoke too soon. The Korean Revolution has begun. The citizens are tired of being plagued by war, and they just want to have a country where war is minimized, and this just doesn't happen. And the strongest points of this rebellion is here, as they kind of just go around here. They're basically scot-free with lots of citizens welcoming them with open arms, and they even connect up to this rebellion. And then this rebellion decides to meet up with the Siberian forces, cutting Korea in two. And we'll get back to this revolution later. Now, the Communist Union is going to blitz and capture the major city of Lower Siberia. They're going to move in and capture this major city, trying to cause as much chaos as possible for the fascists. And they also make an invasion of the Lime Green Team, the starter of the fascist bloc, not the leader of it, but they swiftly capture the capital within weeks of entering the war. And these fascist countries, they were caught extremely off guard by this invasion, as they thought that the Communist Union wouldn't join at a time like this, but they were heavily mistaken, and now they're paying the price. And with support from Siberia, with Greater Siberia, and this Xinjiang country, the Communist Union manages to form a spearhead over here, and are now gonna be pretty cool. now let's move on. Now, back over here in Africa, this Norwegian colony is starting to get a bit tired of occupying this land and working so hard to do it. But they're having to spend a lot of resources here. You're helping out Wales and occupying these zones. And Norway acknowledges all the effort the colony is putting in. And we might see this come into effect later, or because something pretty bad is going to be happening for Prussia. And it kind of involves the Cape Verde Islands, as this kind of happens. And Prussia is like, oh no, because now the Prussians have now lost complete control over the Cape Verde Islands, and with that big loss, they're kind of unable to supply Portugal as good enough. And Portugal is like, really? And Russia's like, Portugal, you can't talk. With the help I've been giving you, you were still getting pushed back by the Welsh. So don't even try me, Portugal. And they're like, fine. But shove a fork up your... Now, things aren't looking so good for Norway here, as the Prussians managed to fully capture Denmark and now captured southern Sweden. And Norway is terrified at the fact that Prussia is getting eerily close to their capital. And that's not very good. But luckily for Norway, they managed to make a pretty good counteroffensive over here, which kind of leads these troops to nearly get cut off. And then Prussia manages to surround the counteroffensive forces, and always like, that won't be a problem. I can just send these guys supplies. Guys, nothing bad will happen. You are losing, Prussia, except the fact that you're defeated. No, why would he ever do that? Because I said so. Well, you see, we were gonna like do that, so you're kind of cooked. But it was like, they can hold out here for months. You can't do anything. That's what you think. Well, let's move on. Now, the Six Stars aren't stupid. They know that New China is going to be tough work, and they're going to need a lot of troops to take New China down. And so they're going to need a few more hands to do so. And luckily enough, there's two countries right to the south of New China that want a bit of payback, like for previous ventures. Who are those countries, you may be asking? Well, it's kind of obvious, but still. Those countries are Vietnam and Taiwan. I mean, what did you expect? These two countries have been wronged by New China in the past, specifically more in the Philippines than Vietnam, but that point still stands. The Filipinos are going to get the first move of kicking the New Chinese fully out of the northern Filipino islands, but not navally. The naval vessels of Vietnam go in and beat out the New Chinese over here, since the New Chinese didn't think they'd have to fight Vietnam. They knew that the Philippines would get involved one way or another, but they didn't see a Vietnam joining in. So Vietnam is gonna make a naval landing on, and that's the wrong color. Now, as I was saying earlier, Vietnam makes a naval landing on Hainan and fully takes the major city and island, and they are now pushing their troops into New China along the coast, surrounding the naval vessels of New China over here, leading to an easy capitulation over here by the Vietnamese. And you might be wondering, how is a small country like Vietnam be able to do this much work like New China? Is because New China kind of has their hands tied. They have to focus on all of this and help out Korea here. So they're not in a good position. They're kind of have a multi-front war. And if you know anything about history, you know that's not a good thing. Now, Greater Siberia is obviously not going to go out here and just take this major city. They're only going to go out and take this major city right here because it's near in the area. And they're not going to go out in the snowy tundra that is Siberia. They're going to more focus around here where it's a bit warmer. They're going to meet up with this rebellious force on these areas, forming like a spider web thing of military chains. and with some help by their neighboring countries, Mongolia finally manages to fully kick out the Koreans out of their marvelous country. Yes, Mongolia agrees themselves. I mean, who wouldn't? And now they're pushing their forces over here. Now, the Beijing country, seeing this as the perfect opportunity to get some payback, they're going to declare war on the Koreans and getting a lot of their older pieces of land and some new lands along here. And they meet up with the rebellious forces and supply them too. And not just that, they're also going to fight the fascists down here. And they're kind of doing their own thing, but it's still on the relative terms where they can do this without waging war on the entire 6 stars. But yeah, they are now moving to here, invading the Shandong kind of country very easily, and they managed to capture the capital, Shandong country, leading this country into full capitulation. And you know that New China is cooked when even Beijing can take out one of your allies. And Korea is a mess. It's turned into complete anarchy, and they're like, there's not a point in fighting anymore. And so all the Koreans and surrender over to the outside invaders. And that knocks out a major player of the Triangle Alliance. And Laser's probably celebrating right now. Now, after a long while of fighting over here, the French, after a long while of fighting, can finally kick out the Portuguese out of their nation and even chase them into their area till they get stopped abruptly by a little thing called the Pyrenees Mountains. But they still can go around, and with heavy Welsh support, or make a naval landing over here, and Portugal is panicking, and now a bunch of groups in the constitutional monarchy of the Red Team are like, hey, we could have stopped that. No, I could have stopped it. No, I could have stopped it. And it kind of gets to a breaking point where the red team is going to enter civil war. Like, that would be the breaking point, but we're not at that point yet, but it's, like, very close to getting there. And, let's move back to this front. Now, remember that nuke that the Turkish Union lost and that got stolen? And, well, they finally figured out the culprits. And they won't be too happy when they find out. Because they found files saying that it was Prussia who stole the nukes. And Turkish Union is like, yo, why did you steal our nuke? Oh, well, to start our own nuclear program. What? You actually, what? Bro, you did not have to do that. And Prussia's like, well, now that the secret's out, might as well do the deed. What's the deed, you may be asking? The Prussians drop their nuke that they stole from the Turkish Union on this major city of Norway, where a lot of the troops over here have been fighting out for a long time. And Norway's like, I'm... And with the nuking of this area, Prussia can now finally take full control of this area. But now that it's radiated a lot, their troops are dying out. Okay, maybe they didn't think this one through, but now, with this weakened state of Norway, we can now push into them and capture this major city. Yeah. And the Turkish Union is like, oh my god, you stole my nuke. That's strike one. And then you nuked a city of another country. That's strike two. And then we find out that you were supporting fascists. That's strike three. That's it. We're going in. The Turkish Union is going to join World War II on the side of Norway. That's right, the strongest country in the world is now joined on the side of a top 5 power. And this event pretty much spells doom for the Triangle Alliance, as it's pretty evident that they can't win. So it's now from now on in episode 40, it's just gonna be delaying the inevitable, or so you might think. With the influx of Turkish Union troops entering, the Crimean front gets absolutely destroyed. Like, as the Turkish Union is basically saving Crimea's ass as basically they're basically bailing out Crimea here. They're absolutely destroying all of the troops over here in this front. And Prussia's like, oh god, we did not think this one through, did we? Yeah. And now the troops in Prussia, the Prussian troops that were in Crimea get fully kicked out thanks to the Turkish Union troops, and so do the troops that were in Western Russia. And this country is screwed, as the might of the entirety of the Turkish Union is getting thrown at it, and it's just a matter of time before these guys just decide to surrender, as their capital is captured, and there's no reason why they should stay inside of this war. And thus they surrender. And Prussia's like, oh god, we did not think this one through, did we? Back in Asia, the Six Stars are going to start a liberation campaign of this country over here. And with the Yellow Country basically being fully wiped out, they managed to get this area freed relatively easily, if that's even a word. And they pushed the new Chinese forces that were stationed here after Korea collapsed. They now get fully kicked out, which just leaves the actual new Chinese forces over here. And to spare you the details to shorten the runtime of this video, yeah, they get fully kicked out. And Beijing manages to fully get this area back. I don't think this two countries are a big fan of that, but I don't think they would mind at this point. With the collapsing Chinese front, Taiwan gets this chance to fully kick the navy of the new Chinese out of the Philippines, and eventually they make it to their old homeland, Taiwan. And frankly, the people here always liked being under the now Philippines than whatever this thing is. So yeah, they fully capture all of Taiwan. And New China at this point sees this war as a lost cause, so they're just going to surrender now to the outside invaders and hope the peace treaty isn't too harsh on them. And good on them, because if I was to leave New China, I would do the exact same thing. And now, out of nowhere, yeah, an event that nobody could have seen coming, the Irish Navy invades into the territorial waters of Portuguese, eventually reaching in the coastal lands of Portugal, bringing the Irish into this war. They see the red team as a force that needs to be dealt with, as the people here deserve a better government than the greedy, power-hungry leaders that are in this country right now that don't respect the Constitution. And a naval landing is made on the Portuguese mainland. And this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, as now the red team is going to... As now the red team surrenders as the country erupts into civil war. And I'm not going to cover this. I'll just make the borders and the peace treaty, which is not done yet because Prussia's still here. But yeah, I'll cover what exactly happened here after the peace treaty. And then there were one or three technically, but it's more so one. As after a long while of fighting, Norway got extremely weakened by this war, but still strong enough to where they can still fight on, and they managed to kick out the Prussians out of Sweden, and they managed to retake their Danish lands that they rightfully own. And they now beat them navally, as Prussia is basically on their own, and you don't have anyone else to help them. So, the Prussians get beat back all the way to their coastline, and Prussia looks that bad that their puppet state is gonna be like, Yeah, no, we're out of here, man. We're out of here. And Prussia's puppet state breaks away and even and push into Prussia themselves with a whole lot of support from on the 6 stars. And Russia is realizing, yeah, we definitely shouldn't have nuked Norway, as now they're facing the whole wrath of the 6-star alliance. And even the Crimeans out of all countries now get to invade into Prussia. Crimea pushes in from the east as Russia goes in from the west. And if you're wondering about Hungary, I forgot about them, but let's say that that this happened. Yeah, that happened. And after a while, Norway finally manages to recover a bit more, and they finalized the invasion of Prussia, ending World War II. I hope you guys like this war. And yeah, let's take a look at this peace treaty. That's gonna take me a long while to make, so yeah. Let's start. And in this peace treaty, we see lots of things have changed. And I'll get into that more next episode because I am way too tired to continue recording this episode. So I'll leave it off here. Bye bye. Smash the like button, smash the notification button, smash the subscribe button.